Okay, so are you ready to really dive into some sales strategies to supercharge your pipeline? Because today we're going to be talking all about how to take your pipeline, not just give it a little tune up, but completely overhaul it. And to help us with that, we're going to be talking about TechCXO. They really are like the gurus when it comes to B2B sales.
They really are. I was really interested in how their material on pipeline and forecast management goes way beyond just like your usual CRM tips. I
Hmm.
mean, they even have like a whole video on it.
Yeah. They're not messing around. What really stood out to me was how much they were talking about changing how sales teams think and work together. They're talking about a complete culture shift here, not just
Yeah.
individual hacks.
Right. And it's really fascinating how they're able to pinpoint just how emotionally draining it can be to deal with a really clogged pipeline. Like when you have all these stale deals that are just kind of sitting there and you just drag down morale. They even talk about that horrible feeling you get when you have to report downward trends.
Mm.
We've all been there.
Ugh. Yeah, don't even remind me. Those reports are the worst. I can already see how TechCXO's approach is so different. It's like they're saying instead of just trying to survive pipeline reviews, we should be using them to actually grow the business.
Yeah, exactly. And they argue that a lot of that stress comes from constantly focusing on just the short-term wins, because there's so much pressure to always be reporting on the next quarter's numbers. It's like you're only looking at the next few steps ahead of you instead of the entire staircase. That's why TechCXO really emphasizes separating pipeline review from forecasting, is because they're really two completely distinct processes, and they require totally different mindsets.
Okay, so what you're saying is we need to do less cramming everything into one big stressful meeting. That already sounds like a win to me. But what really got me interested was how they were talking about shifting from measuring the sales process to measuring prospect commitment. So what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, it's really quite brilliant. Instead of just tracking if you send a proposal or not, you're actually evaluating how likely is that prospect to actually sign based on, all of their actions.
So basically, it's less about just checking boxes and more about actually, reading the room.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it forces everyone to have a much more strategic conversation about every single deal. Like for example, instead of asking, did we follow up? You're asking what's indicating that this prospect is genuinely interested? And by asking that question, it really helps you prioritize
Yeah.
your efforts and resources much more effectively.
That's a really good point. And speaking of being effective, I was also interested in how much they emphasized accountability without micromanagement. It's like they really want to build systems that salespeople actually want to use, not something that they dread.
Right. Yeah, that's such an important point. They really stress how important it is to build a system that actually encourages engagement. And they even talk about all of those outdated CRMs that nobody likes because they feel so clunky and burdensome. I mean, honestly, nobody wants to spend their day wrestling with software.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And I bet those old systems make it really easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. Like you could have a pipeline that looks full on paper, but what if it's full of deals that are going absolutely nowhere?
Yeah, it's like having a stock room full of products that are already expired. It
Yeah.
might look full, but it's not really doing you much good, is it?
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. No more hiding behind vanity metrics. But okay, so I get it. What do they actually say we should do to change things? I'm ready to throw out my entire CRM right now.
Well, they do talk about how we need to move away from these really traditional CRM approaches.
Hmm.
But it's not really about throwing the whole thing out the window. It's more about learning how to use it more strategically.
Hmm.
So they're really big on building systems that give you really clear visibility and, really actionable insights, not just tracking data points for the sake of it.
Right. Okay, so less data entry, more like actually thinking strategically about it. I like that. I like that a lot. One of the things I thought was really interesting was how this new approach actually impacts sales leadership. They were saying that leaders should be a lot more involved in the early stages of developing an opportunity.
Yeah. And that's so true. Instead of just kind of swooping in at the very end to try and close deals, they're really encouraging leaders to be a lot more hands-on when it comes to coaching and developing their teams. And that goes for the entire sales cycle, not just, the last minute.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because, I mean, being a good leader isn't just about being a closer, right? It's about being a coach. In the PDF, they were talking about how this actually makes deals more malleable. I thought that was a really interesting way to put it. It's like you're shaping the opportunity together as a team instead of just reacting to whatever comes your way.
Exactly. And when you have that more collaborative approach, it really helps to foster a much more supportive and empowering environment for all of your salespeople.
Mhm.
That's important because it's not just about, hitting targets. It's about building a real culture of success.